My gosh, Sawadee Kaf. Good morning, everybody in Asia, and good evening here on this side of the world. Yeah, here we are. Okay, cool. So, um, anyway, so last time this is the last um, uh, live from this part of the world for about 3 months. I'll be back here in the end of summer because I'm going to be lecturing at two different places. At two different times, one in the middle of September, one at the end, one in the middle of October. It should be fun. They're both in Florida, and but in the meantime, I'll be back. Between those two, I'll be back in at Oasis in Arizona, um, and that's where I am now. And I've just spent an amazing month eating the most incredible uncooked food. Incredible. Yeah, a little bit too much light there. Yeah. My God. There we go. I feel better. Okay, so anyway, okay. Oh, by the way, I wanted to tell you guys, just just in case you forgot, is green tea is it's green. That's right. I don't want to waste that. It's precious. Anyway, it's green. So when you're making green tea, if it's not green, it's not green tea. From what I can gather, and what there's the people that are connoisseurs of this, that when they put it into bags and stuff, they use the lower quality and they grind up stems and things like that. So you wind up with not really green. So whereas you have the higher quality, the ones that come in actually leaves, it's actually the leaves and it's green and it's fantastic, fantastic for you and for your tongue. Your tongue loves it. Your nose loves it. Everything loves it. Okay, so beautiful. Okay, so we're here. We go. Okay, so let's start answering some questions. Where did we want to start? We got a lot. Okay, so we've got questions from Facebook, questions from Instagram, questions from TikTok, questions from the website, and then questions from last week that popped up, and I just can't answer them all. So what I thought I would do a little bit is uh, go to the website. I haven't been answering too many questions from the website. So, um, yeah, okay. So let's do that. Let's answer a few questions from the website. People that visit the website and then put a question on it. So, anyway, what was this one question? Before we do that, there was a couple questions from last week that I wanted to talk about here, just real quickly, because this came from last week, and I'm sure it's still of interest to most people. And by the way, it's so weird. This kind of there we go. Okay, yeah. So the question that I think is kind of important for people, and that is that um, they were saying that I guess I don't know what this was in response to. It said, but cooked tomatoes have higher concentrations of lycopene than the raw counterpart, right? And so that is the debate, right? Um, hello, Karima. That is the debate. The debate is raw versus cooked. Well, let me just say right off, without thinking about it, without looking at the science or anything like that, you gotta understand something. To assume that we're going to get that we're to assume that any organism that's alive on planet Earth and is surviving, right? Okay. By definition, must be able to have all of its biological needs met so that it can achieve optimal functioning and procreate, and the species will go on and on and on and on. Okay, so that has to be an underlying a priori understanding of life on planet Earth, that the environment out of which we arose, whether it was oceans, if you're a shark, whether it was a pond and you're algae, or whether it is a jungle and you're an elephant, or a human. Okay, so what I'm saying is that all of our needs have been met. All of our biological needs have been met. And as a matter of fact, if we're in a forest, if we're in a jungle, not only are our biological needs being met, but our psychological and our spiritual needs are being met. Yeah, being in a jungle, being in a forest, the alpha waves are turned on. We're out of beta. We're like totally connected, and we're part of the whole that is called nature. So on all levels, we're being connected. But in addition to that, all the food that we need, all the nourishment that we need is available, whether we are lizards, oak trees, or what. And for us to think that perhaps somehow nature or God didn't quite get it right, just didn't quite get it right, and we have to really heat it up to get it more, is just, I think, blasphemy, and it's also a misunderstanding of the nature of nature. So, but okay, so that being said, I want to talk about it. So it's true. It's absolutely a true fact that if you, in fact, there, you know, the study shows when they looked at the cooking tomatoes, right? Cooking tomatoes, we've noticed a couple things. One is that, and now they only look at lycopene. I don't know why. I tried to find studies where they looked at anything other than lycopene and vitamin C. Those are the only two they're looking at when they cook, when they heat, when they apply heat. Now, when you apply heat to anything and it changes it chemically, it's called an endothermic chemical reaction. Endo meaning heat is coming in, endothermal chemical, and causing the electrons to change their bonding, right? And you have a new chemical, right? Okay. So anyway, so they're only looking at the lycopene and that. They're not looking at all the other nutrients that are in tomatoes. I mean, lycopene is one of the vitamin A's. You know, vitamin A is a whole group. It's about 6 or 7 different types of molecules. Okay, they're called carotenoids. It's part of a carotenoid, and these are very long molecules, and they do certain things. I mean, they're phenomenal at grabbing and neutralizing reactive oxygen species, okay, which are detrimental to the cellular structure, cellular metabolism, and things like that, right? Okay. So now what they found is that when they cooked the tomatoes for 2 minutes, they had 54% more lycopene, and after 30 minutes, they had 164% more lycopene. At the same time, at 2 minutes, they had 10% less vitamin C, and 30 minutes, they had 29% less vitamin C. Okay, but they don't look at other things. They don't look at the other ones. They don't look at the tocotrienols, which are vitamin E, and they don't look at the tocopherols, which are also vitamin E. They don't look at a lot of things. They don't look at the fiber content. They don't look at the proteins. They don't look at the fat content, because tomatoes have all of these, as do all plants. They have a little bit of everything, and a lot of some things and less of other things. Okay, so that's that. Okay, so yes, it increased lycopene, but we've noticed when we look around the jungle, we look around the forest where everything arose out of and became what it is. I mean, we became what we are. We noticed that there were no specific nutrient trees, like there are no lycopene trees, and there are no vitamin C trees, and there are no. Okay, so now the other thing I want everyone to keep in mind is that when you look at a tomato or an apple or a banana, or broccoli or anything, it is an amalgamation of phytonutrients, pigments, chelated minerals, amino acids, carbohydrates, fats. In other words, the whole spectrum of macronutrients and micronutrients are amalgamated into a specific form called a broccoli, and they're amalgamated a little bit differently in a tomato, and a little bit differently to form a squash, and a little bit differently to form a banana. Okay, but it's all basically the same sorts of things that are different. So in other words, each package of nutrients comes with other nutrients in it. Right next to right in the tomato, we're going to have all the different carotenoids, all 7 of them, 6 or 7 of them. We're going to have all the tocotrienols and all the tocopherols, not all the tocotrienols. Some, but I think we at least have 3 of the tocopherols. And we've got chelated minerals, a lot of chelated minerals, and we've got fiber, and we've got vitamin C. In other words, we've got them all, and we've got them in a relationship wherein they are perfect for food. Now, if we start messing around with that and we say we're going to add some of this and we're going to take out some of this, now it's no longer the way it was produced by nature, which allowed us to come into existence and maintain our existence and to be alive for as many years as we have been on this planet. Okay, you understand? So we have to regain a respect for nature and understand that nature didn't make mistakes. It can't. It's of divine origin. It's of divine intelligence, and it cannot make errors. It adapts. It adapts all the time to situations that are continually changing. Now, so okay, we understand that. So what I would like to explain to you something about lycopene. In all plants, it's in the trans form. Trans, when you look at molecules, they're either trans or they're on the same side, cis or trans. So in other words, things are configured like this. And so when you think of lycopene, it's this long, I think it's got 13 carbons. And so it's all in this form. We know that. Okay, that's the way it is in nature. And that's the way it's, a really healthy nutrient for us. So it turns out that the reason it's this way, because thermodynamically, that is the most stable condition. Right? In other words, it's the most stable. It doesn't change that much. As you know, things are always changing. Let me give you an example. We've got oxygen out there surrounding the Earth, and it's being bombarded by the ultraviolet rays of the sun, splitting them in half, splitting lots of the O2, which is oxygen, in half, and you've got one atom of oxygen flying and landing on another O2, so you have O3, which is called ozone. So we have an ozone layer, but that's quickly, they only last a nanosecond, and then they go back to being O2. So there's a continual ozone layer and a continual, what do you call it? Oxygen and all that. So things are in constant flux and change. That's the nature of nature, okay? It doesn't stay the same, okay? The phenomenal universe that we know of, the physical universe that we know of, is the one truism about it is that it's in constant flux. For example, we are changing at the rate of 37 million cells per second. Okay, humans, well, you and me sitting here right now, every second, 37 million new cells. Okay, so this is a process. It's not a thing. Your body's not something that happened to you. It's a happening. Okay, so anyway, so this all transform, which is the most stable form of lycopene, changes when it's exposed to high temperatures. And we wind up with what are called a lot of double bonds. They change, they become double bonds, they isomerize, which is another chemical type of reaction. They become cis form. In other words, they change. And yeah, you have a lot more lycopene, but not all of it is bioavailable. Not all of it can be used. It's no longer in the way it was designed. And this is proven. I didn't make it up. Okay, what did they do? The natural configuration of lycopene in plants is the all-transformed thermodynamically. This corresponds to the most stable configuration. Upon exposure to high temperatures, like catalysts and/or active surfaces, 7 of the double bonds of lycopene can isomerize to less stable mono or poly cis conformations, less stable. It was recently reported that tomato residue, in other words, the just plain old tomato, was more effective than the pure lycopene in suppressing the formation of thiobutyric acid reactive substances, which is how LDL gets oxidized. Remember, LDL is the bad cholesterol, and the HDL is the good cholesterol. So anyway, and the LDL, no, it's not true. None of it's good, none of it's bad. It's all necessary, right? The universe functions on necessity. Things happen because they must happen. They don't happen because they're good or bad. Okay? That's not, the universe is not moral. Okay? It's functional. It's rational. Everything that exists as a function, as a necessity. So, for example, our subjective response to looking at flowers and trees and sunsets is beauty. So what is the functional role of that? Well, the functional role of that is that in our right minds, we wouldn't disturb it. In our right minds, we would appreciate it and love it. We might try to paint it. We may try to write music to it, but we're going to preserve it in our right minds. But of course, I don't know what happened, but somehow we decided that we need to tear down. We need to tear down the rainforests. We need to tear down the jungles to do, oh, that's right, to build condominiums, to raise cows to slaughter so that, Joe can have a burger for lunch. That's right. Well, I don't know how we came to this, but we did. Anyway, so I just want you to know that, yeah, you might get more lycopene, but you're going to get less of this and less of this. And then in the end, when you got your tomato soup or your tomato juice, which is sadly not, it's cooked. And cooked, have you ever heard that expression, your goose is cooked? It's not really a good expression. Anyway, another way to define cooking is the black art of spoiling wholesome food substances. Not me. I gotta tip my hat there to Herbert M. Shelton, my hero of all heroes when it comes to nutrition. This guy. Anyway, in his other study, they came up with these the protective effect of high intake of tomato products against the risk of cancers may not rely on the action of a single antioxidant, of which lycopene is, but rather on the combined effect of several antioxidant compounds working in concerts. Tomatoes contain many antioxidants, including carotenoids, tocopherols, ascorbic acid, vitamin C, and flavonoids, and many of these compounds have high antioxidant capacity. Over 20 carotenoids have been characterized in tomatoes. Are there many options for a second round prostate cancer? I'm not sure what that means. There's many options. Listen, second round, I think are there many options for a second round prostate cancer? I think you're meaning that it's come back. You thought it was gone, and now it's come back, or it's now once again discoverable by some sort of imaging, like an MRI or a scan, a CT scan, or a PET scan, or PSA's up, or something like that. So that's what you mean. Of course, there are options. Yes, there's the same options that there were before, and that is, and it means what we have to do is we have to remember again, and let's do this every time. Let's do this every time. Let's remember what how this whole concept of disease works, because please, I know we were all raised with it, and we have to shake it off. We have to shake it off. It's just not true. Okay, diseases are not things that get into you. The body is always adapting, and it's adapting because its needs are not being met. Its biological needs are not being met, right? And for humans, it's not only biological, it's psychological and spiritual. So if these needs are not being met, the body will adapt in multiple ways, and those adaptations are called what they call diseases. And then the one that is called cancer, which we call chronically fermenting cells, is just one particular adaptation. Now, some of these adaptations are dead ends, like when with coronary artery stenosis, with chronically fermenting cells. There's a short end to it. It's shorter than it would be had that not happened. But they're the only adaptations that are available biologically at the moment, considering situations, right? Okay, so what we're calling cancer, or in the prostate or wherever it is, are these chronically fermenting cells. And what we need to do, just on a very basic level, is restore the environment around our cells so that all of the biological needs are being met and this adaptation is no longer required. Basically, that's what we need to do. Yeah. Okay, so anyway, we'll talk about all that other stuff in a moment. So yeah, there's lots of things we can do for prostate and all of them, because they really don't, it really doesn't matter. Yeah. So here, there's a person saying, I'm new here. Do you see patients in person? Of course. Yeah. If you go to drlodi.com, you can make an appointment to see to have a Zoom consult, where I look at your records and we have a discussion and I send you a report, and yeah. And then from there we can figure out if you can stay where you are, and I can collaborate with your doctor, because a lot of times people don't want to move, or they can't afford to, come to wherever I am. So, and that's fine. That's fine, because I would be happy to help people from a long distance to find the different people that they would need to help them on their journey of healing, collaborate with them, give advice. Yeah. Or you can come to Arizona, and in a few months, you can come to Thailand as well. But oh, by the way, one thing about tomatoes. Do you know that, what is it? It's like 85% of the flavonols are in the skin. Yeah, that's amazing. In fact, the skin of many fruits and by the way, tomatoes a fruit because it's got lots of seeds. Okay, it's a fruit. But these flavonols are potent antioxidants. Yeah, and two of them called quercetin. I don't know if you've heard of quercetin. So quercetin, it's very powerful. It's in tomatoes. Okay, now that gets disturbed when you heat it up too much. You lose some of the quercetin, which is something you don't want to do. Quercetin we use as a single nutrient IV for cancer. Yeah, they are fruits. So we know fruits. In fact, bananas are fruits too, right? But have you ever seen banana seeds? Probably not. But that's because most of the bananas that we get in the US and Europe are hybrids. They're not the real banana. Now, I get bananas in Thailand, and they have seeds, banana seeds. I never knew about banana seeds. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, fruits have seeds, right? So broccoli, in that regard, in the same sense, doesn't have it. The lectins and nightshades, yeah, I'm going to do a whole talk on nightshades, lectins, and oxalates specifically, because that is an issue that really needs to be cleared out. It's been completely, yeah. Okay, we'll talk about that. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, so anyway, let me see here. I was wrong. It's not 85% of the flavonols are found in the skin. It's 98%, right? It's the skin. So remember, the skin and the seeds are very, very important. Remember, the seeds contain the whole plant, right? The whole plant can come out of the seed. Seeds are powerful, powerful, powerful. And then when you sprout them, you've activated them. And that's why sprouts are so powerful. Yeah. Anyway, and what's very interesting is, the small cherry tomatoes, which come from warmer climates. they in fact have the highest concentration of the flavonols. So tomatoes are great, and we'll talk about the other stuff too. Now, let's look at another question here. Which is this is from the email. From the website. It says, which is the most helpful in recovery and prevention of RFC? RFC is rapidly fermenting cells. Sauna or Beamer? They cost about the same. Well, they're two different things. Sauna and Beamer are two different things. Infrared sauna is really, really important, really, really amazing in that it reaches deep in your body and pulls out toxins, right? I often tell of a story. I remember when back in, I don't know, 2008 or something like that, where a woman who she came to us because she had been in remission for a little over a year, and she hadn't had any chemotherapy in a little over a year. Anyway, she came to us because she had had a recurrence. Actually, it's not a recurrence, as we all know. It never went away. But anyway, after she did her first sauna and she came out and she wiped herself off with a towel, she could smell chemo on it. So that's how, yeah, it stays in you. It gets in your bone marrow. It gets in your fat cells, and it stays there. Okay, and then it has to be mobilized. So we've got to get it out, and that's one of the ways of getting it out. So that's really good. Now, Beamer, on the other hand, to answer your question, Cheryl, Beamer, on the other hand, specific frequencies that open up the microcirculation. The microcirculation is the arterioles, the capillaries, and the venules. Okay, this is not the great arteries and the great veins that are the main conduits. It's the ones that are right there at the tissue level, supplying nutrients and taking away wastes. And that's what they're doing. They're real. This is where the work of the vascular system occurs, right at the tissue level. Okay, so I got to keep my eyes shut so I don't keep looking at stuff because I get totally distracted. So the Beamer, yeah. Now, it turns out that the vast majority of our circulatory system, like 70%, is microvasculature. The rest is the large ones. Okay, and I think it's been estimated that the microcirculation of one human being could go around the earth more than once. I can't remember, but I mean, it's a lot. Okay, anyway, so it's controlled. It's pretty much, there are little muscles in this, there are small, what they call smooth muscles in the walls of the arterioles that open and that contract and relax, and contract and relax to allow blood to flow or not to flow, right? You can't have the same blood flow in all of our capillary beds, because you would blow some out, and and also if they all flow, if everything was wide open, we would lose the blood volume in our, like from our head and our heart, we'd faint, right? So these are being closed, and this might need it. So for example, if you get scared, someone's coming at you with a gun, you're going to go into sympathetic, and sympathetic is going to clamp down the arteries going to your organs inside, clamp down to the frontal lobe, clamp down a lot of places, and then open up wide to the muscles so you can run and take care of it. That's a response. Okay, that's a normal response. So anyway, so what does Beamer do? Now, okay, in addition to that, we have a natural rhythm going on inside of our microvasculature. Okay, that's contracting and opening and contracting and opening. Well, that slows down with age and with illness. And when it slows down, we have decreased blood flow to our organs. And why is that? So important? Because when you have decreased blood flow to the organs, you have you're going to have dysfunction. You're not going to have enough oxygen delivery, and you're also not going to have enough waste disposal. You won't be picking up the waste. Well, anyway, even with heavy exercise, we're only going to increase that by about 12% as you get older or not well, sick. and Beamer is the only other way I know of. And there's another one called the Cloud, Kloud. And the Cloud is made by the same guy who initially made the Beamer. So it's the same thinking. And according to the research and what I hear, I haven't looked into the Cloud as much as I need to, but according to that, it's like a step up. But I still don't know. I'm just telling you. I'm just answering your question about the Beamer. So the Beamer does that, opens up microcirculation, increases blood flow. We've seen people with diabetic ulcers that would never heal, and eventually they get their foot cut off. Well, they heal because they open up the small blood vessels. And what insulin resistance that they call diabetes does is it impairs small blood vessel flow. All right. So two different things. So you can't say which one is most helpful. They're both very helpful. The same with PEMF, PEMF. But Beamer is a kind of PEMF, pulse electromagnetic frequencies. So there's larger PEMF and smaller PEMF. They're all very, very helpful. And one of the things we can do, also the larger PEMF, whatever they are, they're working at different frequencies and rhythms, right? So one of the things we can do is avoid frequencies that are damaging, such as Wi-Fi, such as 5G, such as 4G. All these things are damaging. They disturb our natural rhythm and our natural frequencies, and fundamentally, that's what the physical universe is. It's frequencies, and if you're disturbing it at a very fundamental level with 5G, 4G, all this stuff that we're exposed to, you can't even, you think about it, think about 300 years ago. They weren't exposed to anything. They must have been incredibly vibrant. I don't mean people that lived in, unfortunate situations in urban places, where it was dirty and, they didn't get, sunshine and all that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the people that lived in, out in the countryside. And they were probably like, there was a level of health. Can you imagine what the food tasted like? Can you imagine what a tomato or an apple tasted like in those days? I can't even imagine how incredibly delicious it was, because we've lost so much with our progress. This is progress. Look at this, how much progress we have. Oh my God. We are talking around the world. Isn't that progress at the cost of what? You see, here, let me tell you something. If we didn't have this level of progress, we wouldn't all be as sick, and we wouldn't need to have this conversation, because we would all be healthy. We'd be living a life of a life that's more closely aligned with nature. For example, in 1907 or 1908, 1909, the contribution to mortality by chronically fermenting cells was 0.07%. That's 1907. So you can imagine in 1707? I can't, because in 1907 we already had the Industrial Revolution, and we had all that stuff going up. Now we have 40% contribution to mortality in the United States. So anyway, so what I'm saying is, if we didn't have all this technology that makes our lives so fantastic, we wouldn't need to have these conversations, because we'd be healthier. That's all I'm saying. So, okay, now there's one question here is about, it's just a real quick question by Amanda. Ivermectin daily or indefinitely? Well, I just want to review ivermectin with you all, because it's kind of important. It functions at so many levels. It's just incredible. It's just incredible, ivermectin. It got the 2015 Nobel Prize by two guys who worked with it. But anyway, and like with chronically fermenting cells from different organ systems, there are because it's a different organ system. It's got it's doing a different thing. For example, the liver is doing different things and is engaging and using different pathways than the kidneys are, because they have different functions. So if a tumor arises in the liver, it's going to function differently according to that biology of the liver, as opposed to that. It's not that the cancer is different or the chronically fermenting cell. It's a chronically fermenting cell. The biology is the same. Okay, the biology of chronically fermenting cells is always the same. Okay, it doesn't change. And so the whole idea of there's different types of cancer, there's not different types of cancer, there's different locations of chronically fermenting cells. The far infrared is really good, and just to answer that question there. But anyway, so like for example, the ivermectin actually turns down the AKT-mTOR pathway, as well as the P21, which is it's an activated kinase that actually is a tumor suppressor and all that. So it actually reestablishes a healthy balance in that pathway, right? And so people who have chronically fermenting cells in their breast, it helps them tremendously, and it gets better from that. The other thing it does is it specifically targets and kills cancer stem cells, right? One of the other things that it does is well, there are different paths. Let me just leave it at that. There are all different pathways, and some pathways are more activated because colons do certain things. So in a chronically fermenting cell that is coming out of a colon cell is going to be doing these things. Anyway, the ivermectin helps in that. It helps in the ones that are in the breast. It helps in the ones that come out of the lungs. It helps in the ones that comes out of the ovary. It comes out of all of them. All of them. Okay, it's amazing, and it blocks the cancer stem cells. It also gets this little pathway called the WNT, the Wnt pathway, and the reason that's so important is because that's involved in metastasis. And if you can block that, you can block metastasis. And that's one of the ways in which it blocks metastasis. It does it in other ways too. So what's the dosage of the ivermectin? Well, initially, remember, one of the things we want to do when we first find out that there's some chronically fermenting cells in our bodies, one of the things we want to do is eliminate all toxins. We want to eliminate the fundamental cause of it, right? Toxins are, in our body, are producing an environment in which the requirements, the biological requirements of the cell, in order to be optimally function, are being blocked. Okay, so the toxins will block the nutrients and the oxygen and all the things necessary for optimal functioning that will be blocked, right? So what we do is do you take different amounts of different frequency environment? Yeah, okay, so I'll get to that in a minute. So anyway, so the ways in which we want to get rid of, eliminate the toxins that are in our body is we want to get rid of any parasites. We want to eliminate any dental problems, and we'll talk about that in more detail in a little bit. We want to just clean out. Our fat has all sorts of nasty toxins that our liver was unable to get rid of. And our liver, because our phase 2 detoxification, phase 1 detoxification of the liver primes it so that phase 2 can make it water soluble and it comes out in your feces or your urine. But our phase 2 is down here and our phase 1 is up here. So a lot of times we have all these toxic intermediates and they can't get rid of them. They're still not water soluble. So they're put into fat and they stay in there. So initially what we want to do, and so the fat has to go. So that's with cleansing, and people ask often, but if I do this, I'm going to lose weight. So what? You'll lose weight. You'll gain it back. It's not a biggie. You'll gain it back. What you want to do is get rid of the fats that contain the toxins. Okay. Remember, it's the same thing as changing the oil in your car. If you don't change the oil in your car 3-4 times a year, your car's not going to run very well by year 2 at all. Okay. Well, this is the oil in our body. It's the fat. We've got to change it. Okay, so you lose the weight. Remember, we have fat around our organs called visceral fat, and that's producing IL-6, interleukin 6, and interleukin 6 goes right to the liver and results in the production um, of inflammatory cytokines, right? All sorts of inflammatory cytokines. So the CRP, C-reactive protein, which we measure to find out if you have total body inflammation. Well, that's a direct result of interleukin 6, which has to do with fat around the visceral. So you want to lose that, right? You want to change your oil about 4 times a year. Okay, so that's that. Now, so initially, when we're going to get rid of parasites, we want to do like at least 3 antiparasitics: ivermectin, one of the benzimidazoles like mebendazole or fembendazole, and perhaps praziquantel or niclosamide. Okay, and we're going to do them 3 times a day. And so the dosages for the ivermectin would be around 12 milligrams 3 times a day, 2 to 3 times a day. Yeah. And then, so once you've done 3 weeks, you're going to do all these different antiparasitics with the antifungals, like real heavy, 3 weeks on, 1 week off, 3 weeks on, 1 week off. Each one is a cycle. You want to do 5 or 6 cycles, and that still might not be enough. But because remember, parasites are deep in our tissues. In fact, I just did a quick little video, so watch for it. It's coming up soon on exactly what I'm talking about, parasites and the dosages and all that sort of thing. Okay, so but right now I'm just giving you an idea because I'm answering a question about how much would we take? So 12 milligrams 3 times a day with other ones while you're getting rid of the parasites, while you're eliminating the parasites. Once you're done with that, I would say 12 milligrams twice a day just for maintenance, and keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. And then you'll want to take time off. You want to take time off from peptides. You want to take time off from antiparasitics, things like that. You never take time off from nutrients, and vitamin C, etc. But you take time off from these to get your body to because if it gets to, what happens with the body is if it gets used to something coming in externally, what it will do, what we mean by getting used to it, is it downregulates its receptors so it's not as effective anymore. So you need to take a vacation from ingesting something for like a month. So after you've gotten rid of all the parasites, which may take 6 to 12, who knows, cycles of 3 weeks on, 1 week off, or 4 weeks on, 1 week off. After you've done all that, and you need to be tested using acupuncture meridian, it's the only way you can figure out if you've got, because I'll tell you why. Well, anyway, I could keep going down segues. But after you do that, you're going to be taking 12 milligrams twice a day. And I would also take fenbendazole 222 milligrams twice a day. Maybe do both of them for another 3 months, take a month off, then do another 3 to 6 months, 3, 4, 5 months, make 1 month off, 3 or 4, like that. Okay. I take them. Yeah. So, in fact, anything I tell you, I recommend, I do, except for the IPT. And I still haven't done hyperthermia. But anyway, so let me see. Yeah, and here's another study. Ivermectin inhibited the proliferation of multiple cancers, including colorectal, apoptosis, and it blocked the WNT pathway. It just does so many things. It's crazy how good it is. Okay, so now, here's a question. Are you seeing turbo cancers in the injected and uninjected people since 2020? And you know what we mean by injected and uninjected? If so, how is this changing diagnosis and treatment? In my mind, the best way to avoid chronically fermenting cells is to live like you already have it. However, is this still enough? If not, what is the same and what has changed? In your opinion, are IV and other therapies still effective post 2020? Actually, very good question, Donna. What they're calling turbo cancers are due to multiple things. uh, multiple factors. For example, I just read a paper where they've found SV40 in these injections, um, by Pfizer and Moderna. The SV40 simian virus number 40. It's the same thing we found in the prevention of polio that they gave to children. Um, SV40. Um, anyway, simian virus number 40 is pro carcinogenic. Okay, and anyone who's ever had a polio injection, um, preventive injection that they call vaccinations. I don't like to use that word just because it's playing into their game, but it's going to have SV40, and SV40 is carcinogenic. We know that. Okay, so that's one reason. There's that in there. The other one is that it's very much these injections by Pfizer and Moderna definitely disrupt the immune response. And so it really kind of wipes out the innate immune response. And the innate immune response, remember there are two parts to the immune system. Number one is the innate, which you're born with. The other one, the adaptive, you have to develop as you grow, as you age and you run into things. But the innate is the natural killer cells, the neutrophils, the macrophages, the dendritic cells, monocytes, things like that are just ready to grab things to eat. Macrophage, large eater. It's a big eater. That's what it is. It's phagocytic. Phagocytosis means to eat, to engulf, and so that's what macrophages do. So do dendritic cells. So do neutrophils. They're phagocytic cells. So anyway, so these injections actually really disturb this whole innate immune response. And they shift from Th1 to Th2, so it's not really active and it's really just chronic and just lying around. Okay, so it's not really healthy. Not really healthy at all. What is this going on here? Oh. You still here? Yeah, I'm still here. Who's this? To be clear, is it okay to take ivermectin and fenbid the same day? Yes, and another one, and another one. And yes, there's absolutely okay and necessary if you have parasites. And who has parasites? Everyone you meet. If you don't have parasites, it's because you took a bunch of antiparasitics for a long time. They're everywhere. And why are they called parasites? Because they successfully avoid being detected and killed. Yes, the horse stuff is okay. It's the same thing. Same thing. Doesn't matter. So, anyway, so yes, we have been seeing it. So the question is, but there are other people. If you're all familiar with La Quinta Columna International, right? They've done a lot of work. They've looked at these injections. They've done a lot of work, and their conclusion is there is no spike protein and there is no mRNA, and that it's all synthetic biology and it's all nanobots and things like that. So there's a lot of controversy out there. So what should we do? So are IVs still as effective? Yeah. If someone has had multiple injections, the whole thing becomes much, much more difficult because their immune system has been really affected, and they may have the SV40 going on and other things that we're not even aware of, so that's interacting with 5G and stuff. So there's this, yes. So, yeah, but we still do the same things. We still do the same thing. We do the same IVs. We do vitamin C, and we're definitely going to do chelation with these kinds of situations because chelation is going to grab heavy metals. We're looking at hoping that it can get saw a question I can't believe. What was I saying? Getting chelation because of the graphene oxide that's in there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What's my opinion on infants and children getting injections? Please. No. Children are much more fragile than we are. So the answer is absolutely no. Yeah. So what you need to do now, what we're looking at is 18 months after the last injection, things are starting to cool off and get better. That's why they want all the BOOSTERS, right? And so anyway, we want to stay online, right, everybody? So I'm going to have to cool it with this talk. I can't keep it up because I don't want to lose this platform or all these platforms. And maybe we should get a Rumble, go on Rumble, because maybe Rumble's better, because maybe we can get away with talking about truth. Anyway. Oh, yeah. One of the things I wanted to say about ivermectin that is amazing, it actually modifies the tumor microenvironment. And the reason that's so important is this. It's the tumor microenvironment. That is the biochemical soup in which the tumor cells are living. That microenvironment means that if a macrophage comes in there to gobble up and it gets near the tumor, it gets in the microenvironment, it turns into what's called the tumor-associated macrophage and starts working for the tumor. Madness. So does the neutrophils, and so do even the fibroblasts, which are part of the matrix of the microenvironment. And the natural killer cells get like deactivated. The T cells get switched over. Then you get more Tregs to suppress it. So the tumor microenvironment is nasty. Ivermectin changes that. Ivermectin changes the tumor microenvironment. Not many things do. The other things. Not many things do. So, and that's really important. If we can modify the tumor microenvironment, we can restore the immune function. So that's very, very important. The other thing that ivermectin does is so here, one study says here, therefore, we believe that the anti-cancer effect of ivermectin is not limited to cytotoxicity, that is stimulating the cell to die, but also involves the regulation of tumor microenvironment. And so the ivermectin mediates immunogenic cell death, which may be a new direction for research exploring anti-cancer mechanisms in the future. Yeah, so it's pretty amazing. So it's one of the things you always want to do. Yeah, so Rumble looks good. So I think we can get there so I can be honest and talk. So yeah. Okay, so everybody knows we're going to be really cool with, before we let anyone inject us with anything or have us swallow something or snort something or anything with our body, it's precious. Make sure you know without a doubt what it is that you're putting into your body. Okay, make sure that. Don't ever do, and also don't believe me and don't believe anybody anymore in this world. Okay, if someone tells you something, say, okay, that's great, guy. Can you show me the research you read that gave you that opinion? Okay, if you're talking to a doctor at the hospital, you're talking to me, you're talking to anyone, make sure that they can show you how they came to this conclusion, and that is not just some bright idea of theirs. Okay, that's what's important. And I love that because I'll share it all. I'll share it all. I only do that. I don't make things up. There's so much. How can I make? Can you imagine? How could you make what? Anyway, how could you make up that? So yeah, these turbo cancers. Yeah, we're doing the same things. We've got to give a lot of extra. We've got high D dimers, which is blood clotting. So we have to give nattokinase. We have to give lumbrokinase. We have to do a lot of chelation. The other thing we do is something called double filtration plasmapheresis. It's actually a piece of equipment. We have it in Thailand. We're getting one in Arizona. And And what it does is it takes your blood and filters out stuff. And what we're finding in people is big clots and all kinds of stuff that is being filtered out. And it also filters out, you see, if you do something called the serum protein electrophoresis, which is a blood test that shows the proteins that are in your blood, right, which include albumin and the other ones. So when you do that, there's a normal kind of, so like with multiple myeloma, right, where you have a difference in the M protein spike and stuff, and there's different kinds of um, what they call blood-based fermenting cells. I can't read these things; they make me distracted. So anyway, what we're seeing. So anyway, for example, if we did a serum protein electrophoresis and we find the alpha 1 is really high, now we know there are lots of immune suppressive proteins. So we do a double filtration plasmapheresis. We clean those out. The immune system gets charged and goes to work getting rid of these fermenting cells. So it's very, very important, especially if people that have been injected, to find somewhere. Now, one of the second best is the EBO. EBO is, extracorporeal blood, ozone, and oxygen, right? So it's where they put a catheter in here, and a catheter in here. They take it out, they filter it through with a microfilter, micrometers, whereas the double filtration plasmapheresis is actually nanometers, 20 nanometers, tiny. You clear out everything. But the microfilters of the EBO, and then it ozonates it. It's a great way to even for those who are not even really sick. Yeah. So, but even with that, we're seeing large clots coming out, all kinds of garbage in our blood, and remember, it's not only those injected. We're seeing this stuff in people who weren't, because we're being exposed at all levels to all sorts of things, right? We all know that. We don't need to, I don't need to say the words out loud to let you know, to remind you what we're talking about. So, we're seeing similar types of situations going on with the blood of the people that have not been injected. So, yeah. So this double filtration plasmapheresis is amazing. You got to find someone near you that does it. If not, do the EBO for sure. The EBO, okay. Really, really important, because you got to clean out some of this junk. It's a much quicker way than doing a fast, because a fast takes a while to do it. You still want to do the fast to change your biology, to bring your biology back. But in order just to filter the blood right away and take away the immune suppressant proteins, all those sorts of things, really quite phenomenal, the way this works. Where are we? Here we go. Okay, so now. Let's see, what is the next question? Okay, so this is from Elizabeth. Is liposomal glutathione or IV glutathione bad for breast cancer? I was taking it for amalgam filling removal, but I've heard it protects tumors and causes tumors to grow. That's a very interesting and an important question. So you all understand the question: is glutathione, getting it IV or liposomal, is that helping me or not? And the answer is yes, no. Okay, so biology is not black and white. It's not simple. It is so complex that it's impossible to understand. For example, as we all know, the two fuels for chronically fermenting cells is glucose and glutamine. okay? However, if glutamine is an amino acid that is that our bodies can make. We don't need to eat it. We make it. And glucose we can make. We don't need to eat it. We can make it by taking our muscles, cells, mostly muscle, sending it to the liver and turning it into glucose. We can do that, okay? So that's why we have people who have been on a 40-day water fast. We check their blood glucose and it's normal. 40 days of water, and their blood glucose is normal? What? Yeah. So anyway, we'll make it. So the point is this, that so yeah, it fuels these chronically fermenting cells, but it's necessary because it turns out that it's the glucose that gives you the carbon skeleton necessary to make fats, lipids, right, and to make amino acids and make all sorts of things. So without that carbon background, you wouldn't exist. So you need that. And the glutamine also gives you the nitrogen, so you can get in there and make amino acids and also make nucleic acids, right, that make up your DNA and your RNA. So these things are essential for life. So of course, remember, the chronically fermenting cells are just life on steroids. They're just going wild. So they're going to need the same things that we need. So you can't cut them off. You can't cut it off. So in the end, if you look at it and you say, well, then what do we do? What do we do? Well, we restore balance in the body. We bring about balance in the body. We get rid of toxins. We do cleanses. We do all that sorts of thing. We use certain IVs at certain times, but then we restore nutrition. We get back to sleeping right. We get back to movement. I'll talk about movement. And we learn to shut up, which is called meditation. So all of that stuff to restore balance. I'm trying to think of another word for it, but that's the thing. Restore balance. And once we've restored balance to this incredible mind, body, spirit continuum that we were blessed with, once we restore balance, the divine intelligence out of which it arose will make sure that it's operating optimally. So in other words, health will come by restoring balance. And we need to lose the arrogance and audacity to think that we can, I just got to stop this. I'm going to plug it here. I'm going to pull this. No, it doesn't work that way because it'll find a way around it. So, I mean, all that being said, we still use intravenous vitamin C at high doses. We still use ozone. We still use things in specifics. So anyway, it's an extremely complex way to thing to understand. It's biology, and and remember, chronically fermenting cells are adaptations of the normal biology. So they include and they encompass all the biological processes that we need to stay alive as well. So how do you, restore homeostasis? So how do you, the name of our clinic in Thailand will be An Oasis of Healing, Thailand, or Asia. We're not sure yet. So it's the same thing. It's An Oasis of Healing. We're just growing. So now, what is glutathione? We all use that word a lot. We hear about it a lot. Well, glutathione basically is 3 amino acids: cysteine, glutamate, and glycine. The glutamate comes from glutamine, which is an amino acid, and then it gets turned into glutamate. Now, it turns out that it's the cysteine, which is what they call rate-limiting amino acid. So in other words, I mean, you can give a lot of glycine, you can give a lot of glutamine. You're not going to change the amount of glutathione being made, but the cysteine will. Now, it's an intracellular antioxidant, okay? And what does it do? Well, it maintains the redox homeostasis. Now, redox, as you all recall, redox is reduction, oxidation. Reduction is the transferring of an electron. Oxidation is accepting an electron. And so that's the electron movement, which allows life. Okay, that's what allows life. Life is redox biochemistry. Okay, the exchange of electrons, and this exchange of electrons in our heart gives a certain pattern called an EKG. If we see that electron exchange in the brain, it's called an electroencephalogram. If we see it in the muscles, it's an electromyogram. In other words, every organ has a specific output, electrical output that defines it. And we can tell if an organ is healthy by the electrical output. And when there's a flat line, no electron movement, it's over. All right, so understanding when we talk about redox biochemistry, we're talking about the biochemistry of life. So basically the difference between a frog and a rock is redox biochemistry. Basically the same molecules, redox biochemistry. Yep. So keep that in mind. That's just, it's important. So anyway, glutathione is inside of every cell. And the interesting thing is that there's only one enzyme, GGT, that can degrade it. And that's only in certain cells in our small intestines, the jejunum and the liver, gamma GT. Otherwise, it can't be. That's why it's so cool. So it's not degraded intracellularly. Once it's made, it's kind of stable. Now, and it can go outside as well, outside of the cell as well. So it's present in all mammalian cells, right? So your dogs, your cats, that incredible elephant you saw at the zoo, and if you come to Thailand, that incredible elephant you'll see walking down the street, horses, all of these, they're making, they've got it in their cells, and it's responsible for maintaining that redox homeostasis, the balance of redox biochemistry. It stores cysteine, which is really important, because cysteine, which is a rate-limiting amino acid, remember, if you add more to, let me give you an example. If somebody comes in with a overdose of Tylenol, and we see that a lot when I was working in ICUs, we see that a lot with people who are trying to commit suicide, and sadly, it was a lot of young women committing suicide over a romantic problem. As you know, young guys, man, listen, I'm not mean to offend anyone or anything like that. I'm just going to talk about the way it is. Young men are not to be trusted when it comes to romance. You can't trust them. I was a young man, I know. I'm just telling you, you can't. You want to, they want to. Guys, they really mean it. When they say what they say, they mean it. But then they got all this testosterone, so forget it. Anyway, it all is down to testosterone. But anyway, these, and if you think it's a decision and it's not testosterone, I would like to give you a shot of 250 milligrams of testosterone weekly for about 3 or 4 weeks and see what happens to you, whoever you are. You'll see. Amazing. In fact, I had biochemistry professors in medical school who thought that all of civilization was the result of testosterone. All the stuff that got us running out the cave and whatever building this and doing that, if that's how you think we came to be, running out of the cave. But whatever it is, it came from testosterone. So it's a pretty powerful thing. But anyway, so out of sadness, they took a lot of Tylenol, which is acetaminophen, and that is hepatotoxic. It destroys the liver. You go into liver failure. Well, we give them IV NAC, N-acetylcysteine. As soon as it gets to the liver, it gets deacetylated and turns into cysteine. It goes up into the cells. It turns on the glutathione and it clears it out. It can reverse it. It can reverse liver failure. It can do it with. It can reverse liver failure in Amanita phalloides. The death cap mushroom. That sometimes you'll see people that are going to. They go out camping. The whole family picks mushrooms and they eat it and they all die. That's that mushroom. All right. So this also. Anyway, so the glutathione it also So it neutralizes xenobiotics, right? You know, xenobiotics are biological materials that are produced outside the body that we ingest that can be poison, right? We've heard of xenoestrogens. Xenoestrogens are estrogens produced, can be in plastics and things like that. And anyway, so it will neutralize that. It will neutralize the metabolites. It also modulates the immune system and fibrin formation. And fibrinogen formation is blood clotting and stuff like that. So it's got a lot of different roles, functions. It's essential. Now it exists, the glutathione exists in its reduced form versus its oxidized form. Its oxidized form is like less than 1% or 1% of all the glutathione. So you've got to have that ratio of the reduced form, which is the form that can donate the electron to neutralize things. You've got to have most of it in that and some of it in this. So that's how we look at it. That's how we determine the redox status of a cell, depending on how much of the reduced versus the oxidized. All right. So very important enzyme, and it can be upregulated. I mean, very important. Enzyme, intracellular detoxification. Now, here's the thing. Our cells cannot pick up 3 amino acids. They can pick up only 1. So if you get it IV, or you get it intranasally, or you get it sublingually, what's going to happen is it arrives in the blood, but the cells can't really pick it up. It'll be real useful as an extracellular antioxidant. It'll help a lot in the extracellular. It'll help a lot of things. It'll do a lot of good, but it's not going to get into the cells. It's only the glutathione that gets broken down into its 3 constituent parts. Then the cysteine, they will all get picked up separately, but the cysteine will really get the whole thing moving. Now, when you take orally glutathione, what happens is it gets into your stomach, and just like any other peptide or protein, it will get digested. That means it gets broken down into its constituent amino acids and absorbed separately. It's absorbed pretty much in the jejunum, which is the second part of the intestines, of the small intestines. And there's that. That's where that enzyme is. I was telling you, gamma glutamyl transferase. GGT, right, which is in the liver and in the jejunum. So anyway, that will break down the glutathione into those 3 separate amino acids, and you can absorb it. It goes into the blood, into the amino acid pool, and it's used wherever. So if I take a lot of glutathione orally, it's only the cysteine that will go, if it gets to a liver cell or another cell and gets upregulated, gets pulled into it, it'll stimulate intracellular glutathione production, which is what we want, right? We want intracellular glutathione production. That's what we want, right? Okay. Now, because when we don't have it, when we have decreased intracellular, that's when we see Parkinson's. That's when we see Alzheimer's. That's when we see chronically fermenting cells. That's when we see that's what happens in HIV and AIDS, cardiac conditions, liver conditions, what they call diabetes. All these things are related to decreased intracellular glutathione. So it's a very, very important thing to do. It was very interesting. A study showed that oral glutathione had no effect on the oxidative stress biomarkers. So anyway, sublingual helped a lot more. But the point is, you can take NAC, N-acetylcysteine, and you can take that. That will upregulate your intracellular glutathione. Now, here's the problem. It will help replenish your intracellular glutathione, which is really going to help you. But it also, and this is the thing about biology, you can't, there's no way to say, I got to do this. I figured it out. We're never going to figure it out. We just got to restore balance. So NAC also can be picked up by tumor cells, and it can help them. It can protect them. So, you know, the point is, so do we need it? Should we take it or not? The answer is yes. you take it to support your healthy cells, and you do all the other things to downregulate the other processes of these chronically fermenting cells. Yeah, we need them. What's the difference between a consultation one-on-one versus going to Oasis of Healing? Big difference. One-on-one, I just give you, I look at all your records and give you a plan that you can I can either help you do that, take care of that at home with all your current doctors, help you find a doctor and colon therapist and lymphatic therapist, or you can come to Oasis, get the same evaluation, and then you don't have to go anywhere else because we will provide all the care. It's a one-stop shop. Anyway, so yeah, that's the problem with the NAC and tumor. There's even a study showing that it can too much NAC can initiate. It depends on the situation. Okay, if you are detoxifying and you feel like you're very toxic, it's a time to take NAC. If you've got liver situation, if you've got anything going on with liver, you would be taking NAC and ALA. There's, each situation is different. So for liver, you got liver toxicity, your liver enzymes are elevated, both NAC and alpha lipoic acid. I would say like, 400 to 800 of the NAC 2 to 3 times a day, 400 of the ALA 3 times a day, with a B complex 1 time a day. That's really helpful. I would also take silymarin or silibinin, which they all come from the milk thistle plant. Also very, very good. In fact, in Germany, you can get intravenous milk thistle, and they use that instead of the NAC to reverse fulminant hepatic failure or fulminant liver failure from Amanita phalloides, that death cap mushrooms. So again, question, what is too much NAC? It depends on your situation. If you're after you've detoxed and cleansed and you've gone through all that and you've gotten rid of the parasites and you've taken care of your dental problems and all that sort of thing, then you don't really need to take any. You don't want to take any, right? You only want to use it as to help you to stimulate your detoxification. And then if you're eating healthy foods, because all the plant foods that we talk about, where the people that say that they are, I've talked to people who said they've stopped eating plants. They're only eating corpses. It's like, I gotta believe it because it is hard for me to believe. But anyway, there's a lot of plants that provide glutathione. So you'll be getting cysteine, you'll be getting all those things if you're eating healthy. That's why we look at onions and garlic and those kinds of things. So it's overly simplistic to see that to think that we should do one thing all the time in terms of antioxidants. Forgot it. Okay. Oh, I got it. Okay. Living and eating healthy seems to be the best idea fundamentally. There are times when we're detoxifying and stuff, we need to use NAC, ALA, alpha lipoic acid, and acetylcysteine, vitamin B complex. We need to use silymarin, things like that to help in our upregulating our ability to detoxify, coffee enemas, things like that. Okay, and then of course all of the cruciferous vegetables to upregulate phase 2 detoxification. You can do that all the time anyway. That doesn't matter. But I'm just saying as part of your detoxification system. But there's another thing to keep in mind. Now, a non-specific antioxidant means it's donating electrons everywhere. Okay, may not be there are certain ones, like for example, if you're taking a lot of it, extra of it, and it's donating electrons. Remember, we talked about a moment ago, redox. You need to have a balance in your antioxidants, which are reductants, reducing equivalents, and your oxidants. You need to have a balance to have exchange of electrons, to have life exist. You can't have too much of either. Okay, you need to have that So, um, so if overused, so yeah, I know everyone's looking for specific answers, but let me give you the fundamental ideas, because that's very, very important. If you understand the fundamental ideas, then you'll be able to extrapolate and figure things out more. Okay, so specific antioxidants. The only one I really know of is molecular hydrogen. In our body, we make about 10 liters of molecular hydrogen, smallest molecule in the universe, every day, and it goes right into the cells and turns the hydroxyl radical, which is the worst of the free radicals that accumulate in our body. It takes it and turns it into water. But only that. It doesn't do it to anything else. That's a specific antioxidant. Whereas beta carotene, tocopherols, vitamin C, ALA, lycopene, all those, they are general. They'll do it to everything. So that's why you want to get most of what you get from eating. But most of us, when we begin this journey, are in deficit because we grew up in the Western world, and we were in deficit of these things. So we need a lot at the beginning. Okay, so now molecular hydrogen is amazing stuff. Also, you can get it in a form where it's a tablet or a machine to make it. And remember, melatonin at nighttime, each melatonin molecule grabs 4 hydroxyl radicals and helps clean it up. Yeah, so Linda, I absolutely work with thyroid, hypothyroid, hyperthyroid, all of those. Very important. Yeah. So absolutely. Anyway, so if we're eating right, if we've already detoxified, we cleaned out, and now we're eating a human diet, which is full of plants, we're going to have all of these antioxidants, all these phytonutrients, all these things that we need. Understand? I got to answer this one question here. It says, isn't molecular hydrogen and ER water the ultimate antioxidant, superior to glutathione? No, you can't. Okay, don't think that one is superior to the other. Everything has its role. Everything that's going to support your body to cleanse is going to go through and requires the intracellular glutathione. Without intracellular glutathione, we don't live for more than a minute. We're dead. It's absolutely, yeah, chlorine dioxide is great. All these things are fantastic, melatonin, but a lot of it works through the, but it does not replace. You can't say that this is better. It's like saying, isn't oxygen superior to water? We need both. We can't say that one is superior, because without either, we're not alive. So we got to get out of that mindset, because we're always looking for the answer. We're always looking for the thing that we need when there's no the thing. We need it all. We need it in a synergy. Remember the tomato. We talked about the tomato earlier. We need the whole tomato, not just the lycopene. And we need it in the form in which nature made it. We don't need it in the heated form. In the heated form, it loses some of its efficacy. That's not how nature made it. And nature's not like our enemy. Nature's we are nature. This body arose. You can think of the earth. Apple trees produce apples. Orange trees produce oranges. Banana trees produce bananas. The earth produces elephants. The earth produces humans. The earth produces trees. So you can think of the earth. One of the things the earth does is it peoples. It's peopling. Yeah, it peoples and it elephants and it does all those things, right? All right. Now, let's look at another question. I mean, I hope I confused you. I mean, because I'm sorry, I don't mean that. That was a joke. But I'm sure I confused you because it's confusing. But basically, the NAC, uh, all these super antioxidants, you want to take extra when you're detoxifying. After your cleanse and all that, you're detoxifying. Once you have accomplished detoxification, you want to just try to get those from eating a healthy diet. Okay, and then you don't want anything in excess. You want everything in perfect balance. Just like you don't want too much estrogen or too much progesterone, you want them in balance. That's what we want. We want the balance. So, where are we now? How do you approach detoxifying from mold illness, CIRS, when it is an underlying condition? The doctor I'm working with uses intravenous fluconazole and hydrogen peroxide to treat mold patients, but I have heard other CIRS specialists advise against using that antifungal drug. Along those lines, have you seen sensitive patients with heightened CIRS markers tolerate vitamin C as well? I have started the 7-7 sodium ascorbate sipping and the green juice feast. I really appreciate it. Okay. So, all right. So let's talk about that. Okay. So CIRS, again, it's become a thing. It's like SIBO, CIRS, SIRS. I mean, Alzheimer's, whatever it is, we're all these things. We're coming up with these new diseases. But here, basically, CIRS is not a thing, but they're saying it. And there was this doctor in the early 90s who came up and he concluded that most of the people with CIRS, he kind of like tried to lump them together. And it was most of them were this way because they were having a problem with mold toxicity. And so as a result of this mold toxicity, there were certain things that happened. Now, he assumed that these increase in TG beta 1 and decrease in certain things were the cause. And he found that his conclusion was that 26% of the human race has a genetic defect in our innate immune system. So 74% of us are okay, but that's a big number. So if 26% of us have this defect in our immune system, then we wouldn't be around. I mean, those people would cease to be able to procreate and have children. It would it's what they call the law of natural selection, okay? The survival of the fittest. You wouldn't be as fit. You wouldn't make it. ADHD, yeah, that's it. And the what's that word? God, the word that they like to throw around a lot for children. Autism, God. Yeah, autism spectrum disorder did not exist before. Okay, so anyway, let me get back to CIRS. CIRS is not a thing, and no. Okay, so what? Let me just give you a quote of what they said. 26%, that is 1 in 4 of the population, has an aberrant HLA system that leads to upregulation of the innate immune system with an inability to adequately notify and summon the adaptive immune system. If you can't summon the adaptive immune system, you're not going to live. So it's saying that 26% of us have this. Now, they're saying this instead of looking at the fact that all of these changes that they're seeing that they call CIRS, are they due to what's going on in the person's lifestyle or what they're being exposed to and all those sorts of things. So yeah, mold is one of them. So they're saying that the reason they can't process the mold is because they have this genetic defect. They're looking for genetics. If they can find genetics, then they're going to be able to find a drug, a genetic cure for this genetic disease. This is all part of their thing. So CRS is not a thing. Okay, if you're having these results, you're being exposed, okay? Now they're saying it's a biotoxin-driven, their definition, a biotoxin-driven multi-system, multi-symptom pathway imbalance persists until the culprit biotoxins are effectively cleared from the body and the neuroimmune, vascular, and endocrine balances are corrected. Anyway, in the same article, they come out and say the basic problem with patients with CRS, though the exact mechanism of susceptibility remains unclear, patients prone to developing CRS fail to mount an effective immune response. So basically it's an immune situation. But the point I'm trying to make, and I may not be clear on this, and I think I'm not, is that it's not a defect in your genes. It's you've been exposed and through all of your life situation, and now you get exposed to this mold, right? So it's just overwhelming you, okay? And it's not that you have a genetic defect, because if you have a genetic defect, guess what? It's not going to change. It's like Down syndrome. That's a genetic defect. It's not going to change. It doesn't matter what you do. It's not going to change. You're still going to have Down syndrome or Hurler syndrome. You know, there's other ones that are like that are horrible. Okay, so this is not the same. Now there's another situation called SIRS, systemic inflammatory response syndrome. So chronic inflammatory response syndrome, systemic inflammatory response syndrome, and the SIRS is something you can develop. A lot of people with chronically fermenting cells can wind up with that. And what it is basically is almost like what they call septic shock. Right. Okay. Virginia, you're right. Yes. So septic shock without having a bacteria. Remember, septic shock is when you have positive blood cultures and your blood vessels are dilating and so your blood volume is going down and you can't get enough blood to your organs and you go into multi-organ failure and stuff like that. That's septic shock, okay? And it's due to the production of what's called an endotoxin that does that, okay? So now that's septic shock. But what they have found for years is that there is a situation where they have all the signs of septic shock, which is fever or high white count or low white count. There are certain variables that define it. You have all these situations, but it's a negative blood culture, meaning it's not being caused by a bacteria. Okay, so that's what they're calling SIRS. Okay, so it's basically the same thing without having found the bacteria. Because if they find the bacteria, here's the problem with septic shock. If you kill the bacteria, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The mortality of septic shock is independent of killing the bacteria. Well, I mean, if you kill it, you're going to get like 45% people out of it by just trying to kill the bacteria, because the bacteria has already produced the endotoxins, which are causing the problem. It's already produced it. They're around. So you kill the bacteria, you've already got these endotoxins, right? Okay, so now, what does help? There was one drug that came up with, it's called Exigris. It's an impossible to pronounce, Xgris. I mean, how do you pronounce that? Exigris. Don't get me started with the doctors and the scientists and the medical world. They're such pompous, ridiculous, absurd, arrogant freaks that are running the world. Anyway, what was it? Why did Exigris, why was it the only drug that did some kind of work? Because it was an antioxidant. Vitamin C, as it turns out, can get rid of it. And if you look at some of the work done in ICUs lately and in critical care medicine, you'll see that vitamin C is being used for septic shock. And it's also being used for SIRS. And indeed, it can be used for CIRS. Now, here's the thing. Remember, when I talk about antioxidants and stuff, we need the amount that we need. So there is a physiological requirement for ascorbates, vitamin C. And we're all deficient. We all have chronic subclinical scurvy. That means we don't know we have it, but we are not, and we don't have enough of ascorbate for physiology, for our normal physiology, because ascorbate is used in so many things. Remember, it's an electron donor. So it's part of that whole redox system. We need it for many, many things, including making adrenaline and whatever, killing this bacteria, etc. So yeah. So so what's his name? Paul. Oh, a well-known ICU doctor has published a lot of data, a lot of published data on the benefit of intravenous vitamin C for septic shock, and it turns out it's also the same for SIRS and CIRS and anything. We need to get as much as we need to fill up our physiological deficit. So we need to sip 7 to 7. So I'm glad you're sipping 7 to 7, and then what you'll want to do is get some more IVs to go a little bit beyond that, because you're in a situation where you need to, because of this exposure and your immune system being overwhelmed. Okay, now anyway, so and guess, we're going to go full circle here. Guess what is one of the best ways to get rid of the biotoxins produced by molds? That's right, glutathione. We get glutathiones from where? Spinach, avocados, asparagus, okra. Yeah, okay. The other things that they have in there that's also good for mold detox is quercetin and NAC, N-acetylcysteine. So in these situations, yes, you need those things. You need the NAC, you need the ALA, you need the quercetin. The quercetin, remember, you can get it in fresh tomatoes, but you want higher doses during this period. So that's how you stop the exposure, you cleanse the body, you use ozone. I would use EBO. EBO is a really important thing to do. And if you can find anybody who's got a DFPP, double filtration plasmapheresis machine, but the EBO will do good. And do all these things, clean it out, get rid of that, reestablish your immune system. Now, another way to reestablish our immune system is we need to use the peptide thymosin alpha-1, because anybody who's 40 or older or under 40 and really sick is going to have not enough, it's not going to produce enough T cells, and we need to stimulate that. And that's with thymosin alpha-1, which is just a normal peptide produced by the thymus gland. Okay, so what is EBO? It's EBOO. It's extracorporeal blood, ozone, and oxygen. Extracorporeal, it's a stupid medical term that means outside of the body. The corpus. Remember, when the breath leaves, this is a corpse. But of course, medical, we call it corporeal. Extra, outside of corporeal. Blood, ozone, and oxygen. So it's a machine that does that. But you plug. They have a catheter here, and it takes your blood out through a filter, a microfilter, and then ozonates it, and it comes back. Amazing, fantastic, and you can do almost the whole blood volume. Excellent. Yeah, so the thymosin alpha-1 stimulates, it doesn't just stimulate them, it makes them. Because all lymphocytes are born in the bone marrow. If they migrate to the lymph nodes, they become B cells, or the spleen. And if they migrate to the thymus gland, they become T cells, T for thymus. So since the thymus is shrinking as we get older, and it's significantly shrunken by 40s, the thymosin alpha-1 is great. It's a peptide. Go to peptidesciences.com and you can order it directly. All right. And you're going to do 1.6 milligrams subcutaneously with an insulin syringe for 10 to 14 days in a row, and then twice a week. So if you get a 10 milligram powdered vial, you reconstitute it with 2 cc's of bacteriostatic water that they will also send you. So now you have 10 milligrams in 2 cc's. And by taking out 30 units, which is the same as 0.3 milliliters or cc's, small amount, you'll get a little more than 6 doses out of there. But that's the dose. Not hard. Not hard. So, and then the other thing too, you can get non-prescription binders like bentonite clay. You can use fulvic humic acids. You can use charcoal, activated charcoal, and things like that, which will bind toxins and things like that. So, but also if you have this problem, you also you're going to have heavy metal problems. We all have heavy metal. And we have environmental toxins, phthalates that come from plastics. And I mean, you wouldn't believe it. If you did it, you don't even have to test because you have it. And, Roundup, we're all Roundup ready. So we need to detox. We need to use these ALA. We need to use this NAC. We need to use these things to get rid of these, to detoxify, to help us detoxify. And the reason we need extraordinary or more than would come naturally from diet is because we live in an extraordinary situation. We live in a artificial, insane world. That's where we live. Is oral chelation better than IV? Both are important depending on the situation, okay? Oral or rectal chelation for ongoing things when you're not, because I would like to help everyone get the tools they need to take care of themselves. So one of my goals is that you'll never need another doctor the rest of your life, okay? Because you're living in a body that heals. I mean, this amazing, amazing mind, body, spirit, earth suit heals itself. You cut it and it heals. It's crazy. So my goal is that you don't need another doctor the rest of your life. Okay. So the more you can do without them, the better. So that's what I want. I want to empower you with knowledge, with information. I don't sell things. I don't sell products. I don't do that sort of thing. I couldn't do that. Okay. The knowledge, I want to give you the knowledge so that you can do it and get what you need and take care of yourself. All right. Okay. So yeah, no more doctors. Okay. Because listen, I can count on one finger, 2 fingers, the number that I've really met that are helpful. You see, one of the biggest problems with doctors is that when they took the Hippocratic Oath, to do no harm to their profession and to their careers. They didn't take a Hippocratic Oath to do no harm to the people that come to them. So the people that put their lives in their hands. That's not what they do. That's not what they do. And a lot of their advice is not advice because it's in your best interest, but it's in their best interest. And if you want to know why I don't dislike the profession, but I rather abhor it, that's why. And the house of horrors in which they commit their sorcery, called hospitals, but the house of horrors is spelt with both a W and an H. It's horrible. And that's where they commit atrocities. TikTok's probably going to kick me off again. But what do I do? Not tell the truth? Anyway. The other thing is we need to activate our own intrinsic mechanisms for cleansing. We need to get outside. We need to take our shoes off. We need to bathe in the forest. Just walk through the forest or whatever. If you live in a situation where you can't get near that, somehow get exposed to forest. Look at pictures of forests or something like that. Learn to turn the mind off. It's called meditation. And then what I say for anybody who's never done it before, learn to listen to your breathing. Okay, because your breathing is the rhythm of your life. Your breath, your in and out breath, is the same energy that's moving the tides. It's the same energy that's whispering across the trees, that's blowing the grass. It's that same energy, and it's in you. and it's God in you. And if you have a problem with the word God, I'm not referring to a guy with a beard and a penis. That's not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to the intelligence that's in everything, in a grain of sand, everywhere. That is how and why everything. It's the how and why of everything that is. Okay. Anyway, this is in your breath, and when your breath leaves, this body turns back to earth. By the way, it doesn't turn back into Americans. It doesn't turn back into South Africans. It doesn't turn back into Chinese. It doesn't turn back into Germans. What I mean is, we are not these nationalities that we think we are. We are earthlings. We are children of God. We're all. We are. Our mother is the earth. That's what we are. We're not these whatever. All that stuff's madness. All that stuff's a lie. All that stuff's a distraction from reality. And the reality is that we are we have a front row seat in this great drama called life. And we get to sit in these amazing earth suits. Yeah. So it's a beautiful thing. So take this earth suit for a walk outside. Take the shoes off this earth suit. All right. Do things that are fun. Play. Don't go outside to exercise. Go outside to play, climb trees, crawl, do all these things. Get your body moving. We know that, 70 seconds of resistance, like you would get from climbing a tree, or you would get from climbing stairs, is going to increase your natural killer cells sixfold. That's going to help you get rid of these mold. That's going to reestablish your immune system, all those kinds of things. We know that. We know that as soon as you stop thinking, because you're listening with 100% of your being to your breathing, that you take your foot off the brakes of your immune system and it goes through the roof. We know that. Okay. So anyway, and authentic relationships. Authentic relationships. Okay. One of the most damaging things to us psycho-emotionally is lying. And we all lie. You grow up lying. You have to lie. If you want to survive, you got to lie. Right? You can tell the truth at work. No, you can't tell the truth. You're going to be in trouble. You tell the truth. And now it's gone. Now they've institutionalized that. It used to be kind of hidden, right? And well, he's just being polite. Or he's just being whatever. I don't know, whatever they used to use. But now, if you tell the truth, you're going to be canceled. What the hell? Canceled for telling the truth. Huh. Anyway, guys, ladies and gentlemen, and that's all I'm going to refer to you as. Different variations of either side, but, and I mean no offense to anyone. To you XXs and XYs, we're in trouble. We're in trouble. They're after us. They got a plan. We don't. They have a plan and we don't. We got to protect ourselves. So one thing we got to learn is how to take care of this beautiful earth suit so that we can do whatever we need to be. We can do whatever we need to do. And if I can get on Rumble, we can talk more specifically what I think we should do. And I think we should all get together and go somewhere else and set up a community. Yeah, right here in River City. Yeah, it's in big, big trouble, you guys. So, what time is it? Have I overstayed my welcome? Let's see. We're getting close. Let's see if we can find any more questions. Okay, yeah. Here's another question. Where was it? Yeah. This is by Ritba. What are your thoughts on GCMAF therapy? Okay. I'm wondering if you've all heard of GCMAF. GC is the protein, and then MAF is MAF, which is macrophage activating factor. Anyway, back in, I think, 1997, there was a Dr. Yamamoto in Japan who discovered that chronically fermenting cells produce an enzyme called N-galactose, N-acetylgalactosamidase. Really hard to say. And for that reason, they call it nagalase. Anyway, that enzyme prevents macrophages, those big eaters that, remember I told you they're one of the first guys on the scene. They take a bite out of it, but they don't only take a bite and kill it. They take a piece of that, and they're called antigen presenting cells. They go to the lymph nodes, they find these trained assassins called T cells, and they say, here it is. Here's the retinal scan, here's the fingerprint. This is the guy you're going to go after. Now they know. So they've activated that to now it's a CD8 cell, and it's going to run out of that lymph node. That's why you don't want to remove your lymph nodes. You don't want to remove your lymph node. You don't want that doctor. Before you go into surgery, you write a contract. Say, if you remove my lymph nodes, I will sue you for this amount of money. Sign this, otherwise I'm not going into surgery. Don't let them take your lymph nodes. Now, I don't care whatever reason they have, because tell them to show you the data that says removing your lymph nodes is going to help in any way. Survivability, longevity. Show me the paper, dear, wonderful, fantastic, incredible surgeon. Anyway, N-acetylgalactosamidase, yeah, nagalase. Anyway, so now that GC protein actually is vitamin D binding protein that's made by the liver, and it gets activated, and when it gets turned on, it activates macrophages. Okay, so that's fantastic. However, they were finding that, like, not everybody was getting better. Some people were getting worse, and they couldn't figure out why. Why? Because if you recall, we've mentioned a few times, in the tumor microenvironment, you have M1 and M2 macrophages. The M2s are working for the tumor. The M1s are working against it. Okay, and whenever a macrophage gets into it, it gets turned into that. It gets turned into an M2. So you definitely don't want to activate an M2, which is what GCMAF would do. It'll activate all macrophages. So what you want to do is get everything back into M1. And how do you do that? Well, God came up with a plan, which always works. It's called fever. Fever it brings everything back to M1, TH1, and you're ready to go again. Yep. All right. But you can do that in other ways too, because we no longer can induce fever like we used to be able to do up until 1936, when we had Dr. William Coley and Coley's toxin. We can no longer do that, so we can use exogenous heat, so we can use whole body systemic hyperthermia. We can use IL-2, interleukin 2, and those are two really good ways of waking you up and getting you into M1, M2. So that's what we do. We will do IL-2, TA1, the thymosin alpha 1, the IL-2, for maybe 8-10 days, and then you can give GCMAF. Then you're going to activate the ones you want to activate. So yes, I have heard of it, and I think it's fantastic, and we should use it, appropriately, right? Got to figure out what that is. So anyway, remember, everyone, I got to go now because it's time, and well, that's not time. It's still now. I'm sorry, it's still now. I hate using the words that people use that don't make any sense. The clock says, yeah. So anyway, what I want to say is that if we can all get together, form a community, we need a few carpenters, we need a few electricians, we need somebody who understands wind power and solar power and all this sort of thing. We need teachers, we need chefs, we need farmers, we need everybody that we can. And then we go to a place south of the equator because they don't care as much about that. And we form a community, and we don't bring anything with us No cell phones, no nothing. We're off that grid. Anyway, I really think that's what we should do. All right, you guys, let's do it. Okay, I'll see you all next week. Thank you so much for joining me. Sawadee Kap and namaste, aloha, adios.